H.L. Mencken wasn't your average political critic. He was more like a demolition expert. And his absolute favorite target? The people who write our laws. So today, we're going to unpack his absolutely brutal takedown of the American lawmaker.
And right off the bat, he pulls no punches. He accuses the entire American system of filling its legislatures with, and I'm quoting here, puerile local politicians. That one word, right there, puerile, that tells you everything you need to know about his style. It's aggressive, it's sharp, and it is just savage.
So you might be wondering, where does all this fire and brimstone come from? Well, Mencken argues it all stems from one single thing, what he calls a curious constitutional rule. A single flaw that he believed poisoned the entire well of American democracy. And here's the rule. It seems so simple, right? Almost common sense. A member of Congress has to actually live in the district they're representing. I mean, that sounds perfectly logical. But for Mencken, oh no. For him, this was the original sin, the precise source of a national disaster. To really hammer his point home, he compares the American system to the English one. See, in England, a district could elect the most brilliant person in the entire country to represent them, even if they lived hundreds of miles away. But in the U.S., nope, you're stuck with the best available candidate inside your own county lines. For Mencken, this didn't ensure you got a local voice. It guaranteed you got a limited talent pool. Let's just circle back for a second to that word he used, puerile. It means childishly silly and trivial. See, Mencken chose his words like weapons. He's not just saying the politicians are inept or bad at their jobs, he's saying they think like children. Their concerns, their intellect, it's all trivial.
And according to Mencken, this one rule creates this horrible domino effect, leading to 3 disastrous results. First, it pretty much ensures that local incompetents get elected. Second, it gives us a House of Representatives that, in his view, has the moral integrity of a gang of bootleggers. And third, it swings the door wide open for powerful special interests to completely control these weak-willed lawmakers.
So let's dive into the House of Representatives, because this is where Mencken really sharpens his knives. He saves some of his most blistering attacks for the House, which he sees as being filled with what he calls scrub stock. And believe me, he does not mince words. He says the more backward parts of the country are represented by, get this, pliant and unconscionable jackasses. Pliant meaning they're easily controlled. Unconscionable meaning they have no conscience. What a devastating combination, right?
To really show you what he means, he paints this picture, this satirical caricature of the standard congressman from one of the more rural states. And let's just say it is not a flattering portrait.
He lays out their entire career path. And it's not some inspiring ladder of excellence. No, it's more like a long, slow crawl through the local political mud. It starts with a basic education, then off to what he calls a preposterous local college, and then they just grind it out, climbing the ladder from school superintendent to DA to county judge, until finally, after failing a few times, they land in Congress.
I mean, Mencken's profile is just brutal. He calls this person an ignoramus, someone who probably never even met an intelligent person until they got to Washington. He says they're looked down on by everybody, and they spend their days not working on policy, but on petty favors, getting jobs for their cousins and dreaming about their next taxpayer-funded vacation.
So what's his final summary of this typical lawmaker? A knavish and preposterous non-entity. Let's break that down. Knavish means dishonest. Preposterous means ridiculous. And non-entity means a total nobody. It is about as complete an insult as you can possibly construct.
Okay, so that's the House. What about the Senate? Is it any better in Mencken's eyes? Well, kind of. He calls the Senate measurably better, which is just about the faintest praise imaginable. And his reasoning is purely about the structure of the system.
So why are they any better? It all comes down to the term length. A congressman has a 2-year term, which means they are always running for re-election, constantly, in Mencken's words, bootlicking the local party bosses. But a senator? They get 6 years. 6. That means they can actually afford to forget about those bosses for a little while and show a tiny sliver of independence. But don't mistake that for a compliment. He immediately follows up by saying that even with that advantage, the average senator is still just a party hack. And I love this line. He says the senator's backbone has a sweet resiliency. That is just a beautifully sarcastic way of calling someone spineless. But here's the twist in the story. Mencken says the most powerful proof for his entire argument doesn't even come from him. It comes from inside the Senate itself,
from a senator named James Reed of Missouri, a guy Mencken viewed as a rare, uncompromisingly independent thinker.
So one day, right on the floor of the Senate, Reed just unloads on his colleagues. He accuses them of being cowards, whose poltroon souls are trembling with fear. And what are they afraid of? Afraid of doing their duty if it means losing a few votes from some special interest group?
And let's be clear about that word Reed used, poltroon. You don't hear it much anymore, but it is powerful. It doesn't just mean a coward. It means an utter coward, a person whose defining characteristic is their lack of courage. Now here's the most telling part. Reed had just completely torched Senate decorum, basically calling all of his colleagues cowards to their faces. Did anyone object? Did anyone stand up to him? Nope, not one. According to Mencken, they all just quietly slunk away. Why? Because he says they all knew that Reed told the truth. Their silence was a confession.
So all of this, the broken constitutional rule, the House full of nobodies, the Senate full of hacks, it all leads up to Mencken's final, damning judgment on the whole process of American lawmaking.
This is his bottom line. Our laws are invented, in the main, by frauds and fanatics, and put upon the statute books by poltroons and scoundrels. For Mencken, it wasn't a case of a few bad apples. The whole system, from the moment an idea for a law is born to the final vote, is fundamentally corrupt and broken.
And that, of course, leaves us with one big question. Mencken wrote this almost a century ago. Is his takedown just a historical relic, an angry rant from a time long past? Or is it a mirror, reflecting a political world that feels, well, maybe a little too familiar today? That's something to think about.